Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how is it going?
Tony, it is our very favorite kind of show, a breaking news show. Ohio State has landed a transfer. A family that Ohio State has had on campus a few times before, including this spring as well. A name that's going to be rather familiar to Ohio State fans.
Yes, Notre Dame receiver / cornerback Lorenzo Styles Jr. has transferred to an Ohio State, announced his transfer to Ohio State, entered the portal on Friday, and now has made his announcement and is now on the same team with his brother, Sonny Styles. And that's got to be an incredibly proud moment for a father, and I'm sure it will be the first game of the season or whenever the two of them are on the field together, to see your boys out there, you being Lorenzo Styles Sr., a former Buckeye, and then to see your children out there. That's probably about as good as it gets.
Yeah, I would assume that, you have two kids playing high level college football. You got to be pretty proud anyway. But when you have kids playing for two different programs, you can only be at one of their games most weekends. So now, see, this is me as a parent thinking logistically, like, oh, that's going to be a hassle. Well, good news. Now your kids play for the same team, and it's a pretty good team, and it's a team you yourself played for. So, yeah, I think that's got to be a real thrill for him. And, this is not the first time you have seen siblings together on the Ohio State football team. And it's always pretty impressive when you have, two kids from the same family that are playing at that level of the sport is, and then to get to see them on the same team, that is really special.
Yeah, and the timing of this, Lorenzo Styles Jr. has been playing receiver for his first 2 years. He was a member of the 2021 recruiting class from Pickerington Central High School, was offered by Ohio State as a cornerback because they already had in that receiving class Marvin Harrison, Emeka Ibuka, Jaden Ballard, and they're obviously looking for corners. And now just imagine that cornerback class is also pretty good, but they still wanted him there. And so he had spent his first 2 years at receiver and spent the bulk of the first half of spring at receiver as well, and then showed up one day, because I remember seeing it on Twitter. One of the reporters was like, hey, Lorenzo Styles is working at cornerback right now. And immediately right then I thought, well, he's not going to be there long. He's going to be headed to Ohio State because that was his other option. And when when you wanted to play receiver at Notre Dame, that doesn't work out. I think this plan B is much more of a plan A and a half, if you will, given the other pull that Ohio State has here.
Oh, absolutely. And, let's for a moment, I'm going to give credit to a colleague here. Our good buddy Alex Gleitman had a report on this a little earlier. Out of the rumor mill in South Bend, a source tied into Notre Dame tells me he's hearing rumblings that Lorenzo Styles may not be thrilled at the moment. We'll see how the dust settles, but this source said Ohio State would be a top destination should Styles look to hit the portal, and that there's a possibility that it could be as a defensive back versus a wide receiver. Tony, the date on that report was September 13th, 2022. So Alex Gleitman only, 8 months early on that? I mean, that's not bad. So if you'd like to find more of Alex's reporting and, be able to see into the future, you can do that at BuckeyeHuddle.com. When we tell you there's benefits to membership, this is what we're talking about. Anyway, on with the podcast. See, we just dropped an ad in there without even having to break the podcast. Tremendous content there. This is something where 2 years in, I would imagine, frankly, it was probably fairly frustrating to be a Notre Dame wide receiver last year. They did not have a particularly great offense, and Ohio State fans right now are thinking, what? He had that huge catch at the beginning of the season. I mean, it was 54 yards, first play of the season. Certainly his year he must have put up huge numbers. That remains his career long in terms of receiving, that 54-yarder. He has finished with 300 and something yards receiving in each of his first 2 years. The Notre Dame offense has kind of been nothing special the last couple of years. And, at this point, 2 years in, if you are a player who came in as a top 100 pick, you came in more than likely thinking, okay, 3 years and I'm off to the NFL. That's the mindset. I can't tell you that was his mindset in particular. Very frequently, you have guys who come in and, Marvin Harrison is probably thinking 3 years and I'm off to the NFL. That is not an uncommon thing. So if you are 2 years into your career, it hasn't really gotten going there. They're telling you might want to switch to corner, and you have the opportunity to, if he went to Notre Dame to play wide receiver, and he has the opportunity to play corner at Ohio State or corner at Notre Dame, you can go closer to home. You can go play with your brother. You can go play for the team that is, predicted to finish substantially higher than Notre Dame, potentially finish the, in the college football playoff picture. And also, Tony, I mean, you went back and did some research on Notre Dame cornerbacks versus, I'm sure everyone in their heads can think of first round Ohio State cornerbacks, lots of them. You can pretty much just go year by year, and it's, there's Jeff Okudah, there's Damon Arnett, Denzel Ward, on and on and on. Tony, what did you find in your research in terms of Notre Dame cornerbacks and the NFL draft?
Yeah, the last first round Notre Dame corner was Todd Light back in 1991.
I was going to say, that's funny, because I remember them having a cornerback like 30-something years ago named Todd Light. This must be a different guy, right? Nope.
In fact, Todd Light Jr. and Todd Light Sr. No, 1991, the last time you had Notre Dame produce a first-round corner. And that is that one of the reasons why a cornerback might want to play at Ohio State rather than Notre Dame? It should be, frankly. So that, that was just, because that was the last one that I could remember. So I had to go back, and I'm like, surely there's somebody else that I'm totally blanking on. No.
Notre Dame first-round cornerbacks are like Notre Dame major bowl wins. Certainly I must be forgetting some since the early 90s. No, friends, in fact, you are not.
Yeah, and, who knows, and I could scroll, and who knows when the last one before him was. And so, yeah, I mean, this makes so much sense. And this is a guy also who, as a true freshman, caught 24 passes, including 8 for 136 and a touchdown in the bowl game. And then last year finished second on the team with, I believe, 30 catches, and was doing reasonably well, but not necessarily living up to the number 6 receiver in the nation hubbub, top 110 player, I believe he was. Reading some of the articles, having a team high 6 drops, they said more than anybody else, more than the rest of the team combined last year. So there are some struggles there. What I think it also makes a bunch of sense here is he has a redshirt year available. And we don't really talk about redshirts hardly ever anymore when it comes to like skill players or defensive backs or linebackers, just because. But this is a guy who could stand to really just soak in what being a cornerback is all about, what it's about at Ohio State, and learn this defense before, being counted on or being expected to do anything. Because right now, Ohio State, we've talked about it in recent shows, doing pretty well at corner this spring based on what we've seen. So I think this would be a nice opportunity for him to kind of ease into things, if you can actually ease into things at Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean, the timelines line up really, really well, because right now Ohio State is feeling pretty good at corner coming out of spring. You got Denzel Burke, you got Jordan Hancock, you've got Davis Nigbinosin, you got Jair Brown. I mean, there's other guys on the roster there as well that could play a role. Guys like Ryan Turner, you got freshmen coming in this year, Jermaine Matthews. So they are not hurting for cornerbacks. So you have the opportunity here to, it's like drafting a quarterback when you have the veteran in front of him, and you draft a quarterback, and he can sit and watch and learn for a year and take it all in and get up to speed on the offense and all that stuff. Here, this is not, Lorenzo Styles not only has the opportunity to take a year to get up to speed on the defense and the scheme and all that kind of stuff, he also has the opportunity to get up to speed on all the cornerback technique stuff that he hasn't necessarily been working on. It sounds like he's worked very, very minimally on it at Notre Dame this spring, but now you got time to really take your time. You're not in a huge rush. This is not a desperate, there's a hole to fill and we absolutely have to fill it right now for this season. Take your time. You have a year to learn. You can play, I'm sure you will see him in games against Youngstown State or Rutgers or whatever. You even in a redshirt situation, you can play 4 games, take advantage of that, take your time, because next year's when you might need to have someone ready to go and locked and loaded and ready to go, because this could be the last year for Denzel Burke. This could be the last year for Jordan Hancock. So you could be losing at least 2 cornerbacks. Maybe this is only their 3rd year, so maybe everyone's back next year, but you at least sort of have to be planning ahead a little bit. And this gives you the opportunity to just plan ahead a little bit. And, I'm guessing that it will not take Lorenzo Styles a terribly, terribly long time to learn the defense, because he has a brother who can probably help him out with that a little bit.
Yeah, and, maybe the nickel is also in play for him. And he's got pretty good size. I believe he's listed at 6'1". And so, he's probably in the 190-pound range or somewhere in there. So that's another good tall corner for the Buckeyes, because that's basically what they're specializing in right now. And he fits right into that pattern, aside from Davis Igbinosun, who is a giant at 6'2" and change. He goes to Notre Dame, finally comes back to Ohio State. I think this is where the guy finally finds where he's supposed to be. Basically, you try to branch out. You realize, what, Ohio State is where I wanted to be. Finds out, basically this is where I need to be, and now comes back home, essentially being from Central Ohio all his life, and now will get to play in the same secondary as his brother, assuming his brother is in a defensive end by 2024. And then, we're not putting that out of the realm of possibility, but a pretty good get for the Buckeyes, and one that he can, as an older brother, it's strange, he can slide under the radar a little bit from the attention his younger brother brings and that his dad brings. So it's one of these weird legacies that I think will fly under the radar a little bit.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting dynamic where the younger brother is the veteran in this situation, and then the older brother kind of comes in and is the new guy, even though he's a year ahead of Stunny, and really was 2 years ahead of Stunny in high school, because Stunny, of course, graduated and came to Ohio State early. The other interesting piece of this, Tony, is I have a sense that Lorenzo Styles Jr. probably has a pretty good grasp on the Notre Dame offense at this point. Hey, who does Notre Dame play in week 3 or 4 this year?
Is it Ohio State?
So my thought, Tony, is that the information flow between Jim Knowles and Lorenzo Styles Jr. in terms of teaching Lorenzo Styles Jr. the defense, it might be a little bit of a two-way street there. We mentioned this before. I mentioned this to you before the show, and you had a great comparison to the NFL.
Yeah, you have in the NFL all the time where teams will pick up guys from the practice squad or whatever from games that are coming up, and they will just sign them for whatever a couple of days, and then just grill them, like fill us in on all of the checks and the plays and all of this. And so there's always teams have to have they understand this, and they have to have a different language put in for their offense or their defense or whatever. So this is very like that. I wonder though, you're making it sound like it's going to be a quid pro quo with Knowles and Styles, where I'll tell you this if you tell me something about the defense, and it's not. They're going to be freely communicating. It's not going to be okay, now you tell me something, and no, not till you tell me something. I think it'll be more free than that, Tom.
Probably a mutually beneficial thing there. But yeah, that's really going to be interesting, because this is I think Notre Dame has a new offensive coordinator this spring. I meant to look that up beforehand. I think they brought in a new coordinator, but either way, you've spent the entire spring doing install, putting in all your basic stuff, installing all your terminology, all that kind of stuff, and now you got they're going to have to go back and potentially change some of that stuff, and but the overall you're putting in your base package, your base plays, and your base concepts, how they're doing things and all that. Now the guy on the other sideline knows that, and so that's going to be interesting. How much do you have to change things after coming out of spring do you have to change things at least just for that one Ohio State game, or because that feels like you're setting yourself up to the other team has your playbook.
Yeah, new offensive coordinator Tommy Rees left for Alabama, and they just moved the elevated tight ends coach Gerard Parker to offensive coordinator. One of the last things I'll mention, Tom, is this has left one of the spring game teams in a bind because he was drafted by one of those spring game teams, and now what are they going to do?
Yeah, the timing of his transfer was really, really, pretty unique in this kind of circumstance where it's Thursday he gets drafted into the spring game, Friday he transfers, and then Saturday is the spring game. It's almost like this is, the guys who sit out the bowl games because they're going to the NFL draft. He's kind of like sitting out the spring game to go enter the transfer portal. It's unusual timing certainly, but if you know you're going to be headed out the door, why risk injury in a game that doesn't mean anything? So, it's unusual timing, but it's one of those things that you might see kind of more frequently moving forward.
Yeah, it is interesting where you jump in before spring is even over, but that's you move the portal window up 2 weeks, and now this is what happened. So I think this is going to be the norm because you got to jump when the window's open, and that's what he's done. Anything else, Tom, that you wanted to mention?
No, just as I mentioned off the top, if you want to get a heads up on news like this, 8 months in advance, you might want to consider becoming a member of Buckeye Huddle. What else do people get there, Tony?
Well, you've got that, of course, but no, you've got football coverage from me and Tom and Kevin Noon. You've got recruiting coverage from Alex and Mark Givler. You've got the X's and O's from Ross and Michael and
Justin.
Devin, he's going to kill me for that, and I'm sorry. I'm reading an article while you're talking, Tom, and I'm totally ignoring what you're saying. But no, and so the X's and O's stuff there as well, and it's all on the message board. You can interact with us, plenty of stuff there, and it's news, it's chit chat, talking Ohio State football, sometimes Ohio State basketball, sometimes women's basketball. Just like, Buckeyes get a transfer there as well. But, there's that. There is, of course, the YouTube channel as well, youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle, where you could like this video right now. You could subscribe. You could hit the bell to be notified and all of that good stuff. So I want to thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys later.